by the way, right now we are passing by right here. You see this huge power plant that we passed by? Yes? Yes. All of this area right here is where the water pump are located. The first station that pumps the water of the Sea of Galilee. On the right-hand side right now, you can see that there is another tell. Yes? This is a tell that we passed by. We are going to pass by it again, and I will talk about it later. So many things to talk, so little time, so little time. In any case, we are going to enter to the Syria, and I want you already to start getting into this mood of the Syrians, because the Golan Heights, if we are going to drive through the Golan Heights today, you will see that most of it was actually not really populated. Not even at the time when all of it was part of Syria. Until 1967, all of it was Syrian, the Golan Heights, and it was not populated. Most of the side that is closer to the Israeli part was dotted with Syrian army camps. Now the reality in between 48 and 1967, and in 1967 during the Six-Day War, Israel was able to conquer during one maneuver in one day the whole Golan Heights. The reality until that moment was that this whole area was very sensitive. Farmers that wanted to catch fish or to cultivate the land in what is the buffer zone was constantly under the missile fire of the Syrians. And when missiles were shot from the Syrians, army jets went up to shoot the points where the missiles are being shot from. And this was the constant reality, ladies and gentlemen, in here during the whole 50s and until the late 60s. In 9th of June 1967, after a few days of war that Israel is able to acquire the whole Sinai Peninsula, Gaza area, and the whole West Bank, yes, all of it becomes Israeli. Finally, it arrives to the Golan Heights. It enters to the Golan Heights from the place where I will show you, the northern part, and is able to conquer the whole Golan Heights, eliminating this danger that was that existed for all of that time. This was their reality. This whole area that we passed by, including the mountain that you see right now with the forest on the right side, can you see the mountain with the forest? This is the mountain of Beatitudes. This is the traditional mountain hill where it is said that Jesus had carried his Sermon on the Mount, the ministry of Sermon on the Mount. Now on the other side we will see the site of the multiplication and the site also of Capernaum, which means that most of the Christian sites in the Sea of Galilee that commemorates all of those miracles that happened, and we are going to come back later on, are located on the northwestern shore of the Sea of Galilee. Now, this was also the area more or less that was in the buffer zone between what was the fences of the Syrians and the fences of Israeli. So there is this reality of spiritualism, agriculture, green, lush, and everything is so beautiful. But then in some periods of time it was a dangerous area to walk through. The 6th of October 1973, when basically all of the Arabic countries, Egypt and Syria and Lebanon also wanted to go ahead and acquire back all of the territory and had started a war against Israel, except Jordan. It took about a whole month to be able to hold on to the front line, to the ceasefire line that was established in the Golan Heights. The Mount Hermon, on the other hand, was lost. And only a few months later, a unit of Israeli paratroopers were able to land on Mount Hermon and get the 7% of Mount Hermon back. Because Mount Hermon, you're going to see, is much higher than the Golan Heights. So whoever holds on to that post can actually have a great view over all of the territory. You can see even Syria, even the Lebanon, and in a good day, even Iraq and even Turkey. Just think about that. So this is why, this is the reality of this area, which I find it so interesting. And literally, I know we are not going to really go through the Golan Heights, but it's just fascinating how you see that the whole land there is cultivated. By the way, there are so many dairy farms right there. There are different things that can grow only in the Golan Heights and you cannot see them in any other place in Israel. For example, apples and cherries. And also the beef that we get is from the Golan Heights. In Israel, this is the best beef that you can get. Sorry if anybody is vegan and offended or vegetarian. Beef, this is the best beef you usually get in the Golan Heights. The funny thing is that they let the beef, before it becomes beef, they let the cows graze. They let it graze on the outside in the wilderness. The thing is that wilderness has grass fed. That wilderness has fences from both sides, and from both sides of the fences you have landmine areas. So a lot of the times this beef will have to go through this only passages that are left cleared from the landmines. But sometimes if the rain comes, it will wash off some of the landmines that will get into an open field, and then a lot of the times, unfortunately, the cow will be immediately appeased. Yes. So just like for the cow, we call it the bull of the Bashar, it's a reality that everybody experiences. Oh, nice, I praise, look at the green and lush area, and then suddenly, boom, and you're out. Sorry, before, on the right-hand side, can you see this hill with the shade and the lonely tree and the structure right now, the right side? Yes, did you see it? Yes. Did you see it? Yes? This was, ladies and gentlemen, the city, biblical city of Hazor. Hazor, have you heard about Hazor? In the Bible, it has a title, the head of the kingdoms. The greatest tell, you remember Tel Megiddo yesterday? The greatest tell in the whole Holy Land is actually Hazor. When we were talking about the battle that Deborah had to go against the Canaanites, the king of the Canaanites was Jabin. And when we read on different accounts who Jabin is, the king of the Canaanites, he is actually the king of Hazor. Because Hazor is this big city. That this is the northern valley, the valley of the northern part of the Jordan. Yes, the Jordan River flows from Mount Hermon. Roughly 120 billions of gallons of water that flow from 3 different headwaters, flow into the Jordan River, merge into one stream. This is the Jordan River, and then they flow through a valley. This is this valley. It flows directly to the Sea of Galilee. Most of the Sea of Galilee is filled up by this water. Already on the right-hand side, you can see the flat plateau of the Golan Heights. So literally, you should understand what I'm talking about. The plateau of the Golan Heights, the mountains of the Galilee on the other side, and all of the area that we see in between, this is actually the valley of the Jordan River. The Jordan River right now is flowing somewhere on the right side. This is the Jordan River. We are crossing the Jordan River. We are crossing the border. And now we are in the land of the foreigners. Okay, so you see that we are right now standing on this something that looks like a ledge. Yes, this ledge, this flat step, flat balcony, flat terrace. We climbed up the steps and we immediately entered into this ledge. Yes, can you see?
Yes.
Can you see that it starts all the way from those small 2 wooden signs already from the back, and it will continue all the way up to that way. Yes, this is roughly a 200 feet wide ledge. It is actually, this ledge was created, it's a debris of the ceiling of a huge cave that was once upon a time right above us. Once upon a time, there was a huge cave right over here. This cliff that you see here was actually the back wall, the back of this huge cave. Because we are in the Great Valley Reef, the Great Valley Reef, I told you, is this huge valley through which the birds migrate. There are mountains that are of Israel on the one side and mountains that are on the other side, which are Jordan and the Golan Heights. This huge area is basically a region where 2 continents are constantly active. Yes? This brings a lot of earthquakes. You remember yesterday I told you about 2 great earthquakes that occur here at least twice in a century. This huge cave, the cave collapsed because of one of these huge earthquakes long time ago. And what we basically have is this foundation, this whole debris. The water of the spring of Banyas, the 1/4 amount of the Jordan River, was once flowing from the innermost part of the cave, yes, because basically this is all part of Mount Hermon. The cave was right at the foot of Mount Hermon. When the cave collapsed, the water continued to flow from underneath the debris. So this is why you remember when I told you look at the wall before we started going up the stairs, I told you look at the pool right there. You see that the water is gushing out of this wall. This is exactly where this water comes from today. So we are sitting right over the spring right now. Right now we are over the spring. Now imagine how the Jordan is important to the people that are here. At least until 17 years ago, most of the water that was drank by the Israelis will be from the Sea of Galilee. Most of the Sea of Galilee is fed by the Jordan River. So those 3 tributaries are very important, and it will be the same also for the people that live here even before the time of Jesus. So naturally, every place like this that has a huge source of spring will become a place where people will start worshiping. And somewhere around 200 BC, the area that we have right there, we have today there a big cave that was once at the back of this bigger cave. This cave right there became somewhere around 200 BC a place where the god Pan was worshipped. Yes? Later on in the year 2 AD, there was a big Roman center that was built right here, a huge market right next to the gates of the city. Right next to the gate there was usually a market where people that came all the way far away from what is Syria, Phoenicia, Lebanon will pass by this market, and they will be able to buy some food, some water, yes, and also they will be able to worship to their deities. Only what is good about this specific place is that there are many deities later on that you can worship to, specifically in here. So this is like the marketplace of deities. Yes? And what do I mean by that? Okay, so why are we sitting right here? Because there are actually a few temples, the ruins of a few temples that we can see if we will stand right from this direction. Number 1, can you see that right against the wall there is something that looks like a small niche? Yes? This niche is actually the back of this temple. The back of this temple. The back of this temple. You can see the cliff that is right in front of us. This is the cliff in the picture, and the temple right here is the one that is on that side. So the niche is part of this temple. This is a temple that Herod built, Herod the not so great built, in the name of the god Caesar Augustus. In those niches there were many different statues, probably of the household of Caesar Augustus, because he was worshipped as a god. So you would be able to come him and worship this deity emperor. This is number 1. Now this temple, right behind this temple, this is where there was this cave. The cave that we will see later on. This cave, according to later on Roman historians, that was the place where the citizens were able to worship the god Pan. What they did a lot of the times, they brought goats, because goats are connected to Pan, and they sacrificed them, goats. You remember what Jesus said about the goats nation and the sheep nation? They worshipped goats. They took those goats and threw them into the abyss. You remember what Jesus said about the goats? The goat nation shall go to Hades. They threw the goats into the dark abyss, which was once in the pit of this cave. They threw them down, and they believed that if the god Pan is going to receive them, the goats, the corpse of these goats are not going to float. They are going to be received in the abyss of this cave by the god Pan. But if it will float up, it means that the god Pan did not receive it. And what did Jesus says about the goat nation? It will go straight down to the Hades. So we see it, the same thing, but only from the other point of view, from a Christian point of view. This is the cave that was worshipped. This is the cave where it happened. Today we cannot see there anything because it is also filled up by a debris. Next in line, we have here a courtyard. This courtyard is actually, you see that there is a big niche, and there are two niches on the left-hand side. One right on top of the big one, and another on the right side. Those two niches. Those two niches are right here. This is a courtyard. This is a courtyard that was devoted to the god Pan again and his nymphs. Only later on, even in year 148, there was somebody that decided to carve another niche 148 years after Jesus Christ, 150 years after Jesus Christ. Somebody comes and builds here another statue and devotes it again to the god Pan. 150 years later. 150 years later, after Jesus Christ, those early Christians are going to be persecuted. So it will be still active, still a pagan city. Now, let's go next. You can see that there is a beautiful pillar, yes, that stands here on the corner. This beautiful pillar was part of this temple, next temple. Yes, this next temple right here was a temple that was devoted to the god Zeus, the Heliopolitan. Zeus the Heliopolitan was the main patron deity of the city Baalbek, which was a big Roman city today in Lebanon. So that also, we see influences from that shrine also in here, which is a little bit further. Zeus Heliopolitan. Now, right at the back of also this specific temple, there was also an inscription found devoting to the Lord Augustus, the Lord Caesar. Imagine that. The next thing that we have here a small statue. This small statue is actually somewhere on the right-hand side of this temple. Somewhere right on the right-hand side of the temple, very close to the back of the cliff, there was another small temple that was devoted to the god of revenge called Nemesis. Yes, and the next structure that you see that there is one person, one lady that just climbed up the stairs. Can you see it? Yes, and they are all sitting and looking at something. This was the place where archaeologists have found a huge complex of tombs. In those tombs, they found a huge amount of bones of goats. And you know how they call this tomb, this burial place? The tomb of the holy goats. You can actually see there today that there is something that looks like spaces underneath those benches, and those spaces were places they received the same burial process, the same burial that Jews will receive. Those goats also received it. So they were buried, and then their bones were put underneath this depository, and they were basically elevated to a high position of deities, you can say, the tomb of the holy goats. Now, the last thing that I want to say is somewhere right in here where we are sitting, right over this area, they had actually found this small theater. And in this small theater, according to maybe suggestion, this will be the place where the Romans would able to participate in the ceremonies of Pan, and they will be witnessing different, spectating different shows where ghosts are going to be dancing along somebody that is going to be playing the flutes. So this is the place where it happened. Very, very, very interesting. So you have Augustus that you can worship. You have the goat that you can throw into the pit, hope that Pan will receive it. You have the nymph, the poor nymph that you can worship too. You have Zeus Heliopolitan, a different like Zeus Heliopolitan. Then you have the god of revenge. Then you have the tomb of the holy goats, and these are the only things that were found right here. You have to understand that there were probably even more temples that were found in this area. When I'm saying Caesarea Philippi is a big Roman center, it's not just a big Roman center, administrative center, it is literally a big place, a main place where you can come and worship the different deities. If you have anything that you want to fix in your life, you just maybe talk to the local priest. They tell you who you should worship. You buy this statue, you buy this poor goat, and you actually sacrifice it to the right temple. And this is how you basically fix everything in your life. And this is how it was. Can you imagine that? Now, with your permission, I want to read. Is it okay?
Sure.
Now, I think it's very, very powerful, and I want to read it. I will read it slowly, I promise. Okay? So I'm reading from Matthew 16, and I'm reading from verse 13. Listen to what Jesus does. When Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, he takes the disciples away from the Sea of Galilee. That was their comfortable place where he could preach. He takes them to the far outskirts, to here, Caesarea Philippi. He asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" And they said, "Some say the son John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." He said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter replied, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Dead gods,
Yeah.
yes,
Yes.
the ghosts that fall into the Hades, but you are the Son of the living God. Yes, not like the Son of God who is the Lord Augustus. You are the Son of the living God. And Jesus answered him, "Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven." Then he strictly charged the disciples to tell no one that he was the Christ. "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it." You are Peter. Now, a lot of the times you have different denominations that believe that the rock on which the foundation of the church was actually chosen Peter. Now, but what you need to also know, and this is, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that Peter or Petrus in Greek, it means small pebbles.
Right.
Little rock. And what Jesus is doing right here, he's not saying that you will be the foundation of the church. He's bringing them here because Jesus is the foundation of the church.
Yeah.
Peter just said that Jesus is the Son of the living God. He brings them right here. He is, you can say that he sees all of those different temples where the God of the dead is being worshipped, are being built over this ledge, yes, of 200 feet. And he says, maybe he says, instead of these temples that you see here, on top of this rock, I will build my church. Or maybe he tells to them, I will be the church. And I will become the rock of this church.
Yes.
I will build you, not that I will become just the rock, not the emphasis like this, but instead of these different churches that you see here, pagan churches in a way, I will build you a church and you will become my community. Instead of worshiping the God of the dead, you will worship the living God, and that will be all through me, because the foundation will be built on top of me.
Yes.
Come right here to the land of the foreigners, to the land of the Gentiles. Look how the different God of the dead is being worshipped right here. But I will give them a better place, a better portion where they will be able to be part of a community, which the foundation of which I will be. And they will worship finally the living God. He brings the disciples, which are Jews right here, to the land of the foreigners, and he prophesies that the whole world is going to change. Everybody is going to worship the living God. And it happened right here, in Caesarea Philippi.
Sounds
Incredible.
God had already signed a covenant with Abraham long time ago on the top of Mount Hermon, and Jesus came right here, and God signed another covenant with the rest of the world. And this is what happened here. Now later on, a lot of the people would recognize Mount Hermon as the place where 6 or 8 days of journey Jesus will transfigure. So maybe this is also the site, the high mountain on top of which Jesus transfigured. This is how important this site was, the foundation of the church.
awesome.
And you can see the contrast. You can imagine how they are coming and seeing that people are sacrificing those poor goats, sheep, donkeys, statues, throwing it all into the different temples of the God of death. But instead, he tells to them in silence.
That's right. Yes.
This is where Peter calls him the Messiah.
Yes,
He
Jesus.
said, "Thou art the Christ, or the Anointed." And well, he's a great preacher. And I think just to sum that up, "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God." Where this is said is so important. It's said here, and just think of Jesus standing here with the disciples and how beautiful those temples were and all the greatness that's standing right in front of them. And then Jesus said, "Who do you say I am?" Not everybody captured it. Some people said Jeremiah, some people they had different answers. But Peter said, "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God." And water brings life. Wherever there's water, there's life. And so he says it here where water is flowing out of a rock. And I think that's beautiful in itself, is that he becomes the smitten rock that the water is going to flow out of that gives us all life. And so we don't worship all these gods. There's a nut standing on a rock trying to kill himself. You might want to call him a goat. I don't know. People just do the craziest things. They treat him every year. The doctors do. But I think if we just need to say, do you know who he is? Do you know who Jesus
He's our leader.
is? He's not a prophet. He's not just a priest and a king. But he's the Son of the living God.
living God.
Oh my goodness. I don't serve some dead thing. I don't
No, I
serve
do not.
No way.
Abraham. He's the God of Abraham, which means he was not the God of Abraham in a dead sense. He was a God of Abraham that's still alive.
Exactly.
Of Isaac that was still alive. Of Jacob that's still alive. And he's our God too.
Yes.
And how many have Jesus as your Lord?
Amen.
And remember, one last thing. Christians would die rather than say Caesar is Lord.
Amen.
Right here they said Caesar is Lord. The Christians said, no, Jesus is Lord. He's our master. And they would say, all you have to do is recant now. All you have to do is say a simple sentence, and we let you go. And they would not do it. Man, I know people who give up on the Lord if it's raining. You know, they can't come to church. Or
Snowing.
they can't say that they are Christian. They've got to hedge that back. Well, a lot of people have different gods. A lot of people, well, that's what they were saying here too. There are different pathways to the Lord. But Jesus said, no man cometh unto the Father but how? By me. And he's the door.
Yes.
And if you don't go through the door to what? The door to the fullness of God, the fullness of the Godhead, that Abraham was not shown all of God yet, but God gave us at the beginning what we could handle. And then we see more of him all the time. And right here we saw a great revelation. And you said it so beautiful. It's not Peter that's the church, not the first pope, but it's the revelation of who Peter believed in, and that was Jesus Christ. That's the rock, is that you believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. And if you confess your sins, and he's faithful just to forgive you, and you believe that Jesus died and rose again on the third day, you shall be saved. Churches come in and they add some stuff. Well, you got to believe like us. You got to be baptized like us. You got to wear your hair like us. You got to do this. All that's like a commercial on television. You know, you get this particular thing and it'll keep you from being sick. But it might cause diarrhea. It might cause something. These are all things churches add. But when you read the scripture, it's plain, it's clear, it's precise, and if you just take that, you're going to be good. Everybody, get somebody a high five right next to you and say, "I believe Jesus is Lord."
Del tuo amore fa grazia Dio, rialza le mura di Gerusalemme, allora gradirai i sacrifici prescritti, l'olocausto e l'intera orazione. Allora immoleranno vittime
And this is where we are going to get our boat to sail in the Sea of Galilee. Now, the boat that we are going to sail is a replica of a boat that was uncovered, unearthed, more or less a little south of the land of Gennesaret in 1986. In 1986, it was a very, very bad year. There was a heavy drought in Israel, and the levels of the Sea of Galilee went a little bit down. Now, the level of the Sea of Galilee, just for your information, right now it's about 695 feet below the sea level, 695 feet below. It went a little bit further down, exposed some parts of the shore. Two members of this kibbutz Genosar, that were walking on the shores, they stumbled upon something that looks like a nail on the sand, stuck in the sand. They started to dig into this nail, and they found that the nail was fixed into a wooden beam. They continued to dig a little bit further, and they found that the beam was not just one beam, but it was something a little bit bigger. They immediately started to think that maybe it's some kind of an ancient boat. They were able to call on a delegation, archaeologists, that were able to fetch this boat out of the shores, out of the sand, with the help of a polyurethane foam. They were able to sail it to a research center, and they dated it with carbon-14 dating, with the organic matter. They dated it to year 50 BC. Now, ladies and gentlemen, a boat at the time of Jesus is something very expensive. This is not like today that you will change your car every year. If you have a boat, this is something that you will try to fix again and again from time to time, but it will be the same boat. When we are reading on the accounts of Jesus in the Sea of Galilee, we know that he will sail across the sea so many times, performing so many miracles from that side to the land of the Gadarenes, to the land of the multiplication, to the land of Bethsaida, which was the hometown of Peter, Andrew, and Philip, to the land of the Magdala, which we passed by. This is where we have lunch. To the land of Gennesaret, where he later on will heal many people. So many times Jesus had sailed across the sea. So obviously the understanding is that it was not the same boat. So when we are thinking about a boat, we should think about many, many boats. boats, but those many boats will be probably used so many times, at least so many times by Jesus from side to side, and then he will when he will finish using the boat will be used again by the fishermen to catch the fish in the Sea of Galilee. So when we are talking about a boat that was found in 1986 and dates back to 50 BC, this is a great finding. It means that there is a high probability that that boat was once used by Jesus when he was sailing across the Sea of Galilee those millions and millions of times. Just think about that. So, we are going to be very fortunate to sail on a replica of this Jesus boat.
Safe and secure from all alarms. We're leaning, oh, leaning on the everlasting arms.
Maybe Monica wants to sing something.
Yes, Monica.
Come on, Monica, sing
Come
something.
on, Monica. Sure. I don't know a lot of the hymns though.
Well, sing I Love the Lord. I want you to sing your favorite.
How about, do you guys know the chorus to Overcome?
Yeah.
All authority, every victory is yours. All authority, every victory is yours.
just thinking about when Jesus had just been with all of his disciples, and it talks about it in John 4:34, 35, somewhere in there. And it talks about it in the book of Matthew 8 and Luke 8 also about his, when Jesus was going over. But Jesus had been very busy preaching and healing the sick and doing all these things. So Jesus was sick, and I like what it says in John, the 4th chapter, that Jesus said to his disciples who had seen all these miraculous things going on and their faith was really pumped up. They were in the perfect will of God, and they got in, and he said, let us get in the boat and go to the other side. So they all got into the other side, but Jesus went down into the hull of the ship.
Yes.
But there's something in there that's significant, because it says he went to sleep on a pillow. He wasn't going for a nap. No, he was going to take a long sleep because he was tired from everything that he had been doing. And in the perfect will of God, the storm arose. So sometimes we can be in the perfect will of God and the storms arise in our life and we don't understand why that's happening. But if you get in the boat with Jesus, the disciples got all excited and Jesus said, where's your faith? You know, he stopped it. But Jesus said, why? But if you get in the boat with Jesus and he said, I'm going to the other side, he had full intention to go to the other side. You were going to get there too. It didn't matter how many storms came. So if we stay in the spiritual boat with Christ, no matter how many storms come in the perfect will, when we question God and say, God, why is this happening? Why is that happening? It doesn't matter. If you're in the boat with Jesus, you're going to get to the other side, and the other side is heaven. So just hang in there and keep going until you get there. Praise the Lord.
Amen. Praise the Lord.
Everybody, and then they'll give you a personal word down there.
Prayer to me. Okay. Oh, that's you. Oh, I think that's awesome.
God, we come to you right now in the name of Jesus. We thank you for this day. We thank you for everything that you have done for us.
Yes, thank you, Lord.
Yes.
Thank you, Jesus.
We thank you for your presence.
Yes.
God, we ask right now, as these people get baptized in their very resurrection with you, God, that you would touch their lives, that you would strengthen them, that this would be an awesome day for them, that there'll be miracles happen in this water, and we give you the praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Praise God.
All right. I'll take the ones I'm going under. Where's Jan? Come on, Jan.
How do I make it? You have to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Look down here and see if people are welcome. And I know Julie and Jan are just so pleased. Right here. Thank you.
Sarah, you fixing your hair? Are you? I'm taking pictures.
Yes.
I'm taking pictures.
Yeah, you just gotta get used to it. Are you playing?
Pray for people. I'll pray. Yes.
I baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. In that name is Jesus. Hallelujah. Oh, praise the Lord, Aaron.
I'm sure there's enough.
Praise the Lord, Aaron. Praise the Lord, Terry. Praise God.
This is my daughter, whom I will.
Yes.
Praise God, we thank you. Baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
Praise God.
All right, Q. When you feel in the water with it.
We should come out that way, I guess. Yeah. There we go there. Yeah. Whoa!
think that's all that I got.
Okay, good.
Oh, look around this way.
All right, come on, Leroy.
Yeah. Praise the Lord.
Where's Judy at? Where's Judy? I'm getting you two, John. Come on. Get ready. Bring them down. Come on, Louis. I got
Thank you, God. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Yes.
Hey, you get hotter before you go to the higher end. Drink some milk here. Okay. I'll hold your
Closer that way.
How about you guys baptize? We'll baptize you guys and you guys baptize us.
Praise the Lord, God.
No, it's a fly that keeps bothering you.
She sanctified the water, didn't she?
I claim that right now in the name of Jesus.
Oh, the Lord is good.
We just baptize you. We just love you guys. Confession of your faith.
Thank you, Jesus.
Confession of our Lord. We baptize you. Praise God.
Thank you, Jesus.
Praise the Lord. Boy, I hope
How many minutes? Yes, keep going. How many minutes do we have?
They can drag us out.
It's 3:31.
I don't know where. Praise the Lord.
I thank you right now for the opportunity to have you with it. I pray right now on the confession of your faith in the death, burial, and resurrection of our Lord Jesus Christ. I have baptized you in Jesus' name.